What's up, team? Welcome to another Psychology Fitness Lab episode with me, David Michael, your head coach at PSYFI. And today, I want to build on a psych bite that we talked about called rules, or what Vishen Lakhiani from Mind Valley coined as bullshit rules, or called brules. Thank you, Vishen. I love this concept. So, what are rules? Rules are bullshit rules that we live in our lives that we were either given by society, we were either passed on by our families, or somehow we just made these up along the way because of our past experiences, which we'll talk about in a minute. Now, all of us have these bullshit rules in our life, or rules. Some of them are conscious, some of them are unconscious. So we're gonna talk about both today, but what is a bullshit rule? And let's give it, these are rules that we live by, either given to us or pressed on upon us, that keep us small and safe. And at the same time, what they're also doing is keeping us anxiety ridden. Why? Because we're trying to measure up to a standard that either doesn't exist or is impossible, or is a standard that, like I found out earlier on in my previous career, that didn't make me happy. So what are some of these rules that a lot of us are following or are caught up in? 1, you have to have a degree. 2, you gotta get married. 3, you gotta buy a house. 4, you gotta have kids. 5, you gotta make this amount of money to be happy. And what are these rules really in pursuit of? Happiness and fulfillment. But as you will notice, some of us tried to follow this and it didn't work out. I was a perfect example of that. In my former career as a litigation psychologist, I followed all the rules that were put upon me, right? Go to high school, go to college, get a graduate degree, get a really good job, make this amount of money, get this kind of apartment, get this kind of car, get this kind of girl, get the corner office, get this in your bank account. And I got to a point when I was around 29 years old, and I looked around and I was like, and this is before I even knew about rules, I looked around and I was completely unfulfilled and I wasn't happy, even though I had sacrificed everything I could to satisfy these rules that I was pushed upon me. It didn't make a difference. Now, one of the things we talk about in psychology is that these are called social constructs. These are societal things that are constructed in order to keep us kind of in line, essentially. And what these things do is that they do. For most people, they keep people in line and focused and moving forward and contributing to society in the way that others think we should. But if you're like me and you followed all these, you all of a sudden weren't happy. Or maybe you're engaging in comparison on some of these. You're like, oh, I'm not married and I'm so unhappy, or I don't have any kids and my friends look so happy with their kids. Oh, I didn't decide to buy a house. I didn't decide to buy a house or get married or have kids, by the way. And I'm so unhappy. Well, these are the things that are gonna force you into conformity by society. Now, when we look at this, is that we think this will make us happy, right? Because it supposedly makes everyone else happy. Look on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and social media and TV and news. But as if you lived the life that I did, and if you lived your life like you're doing, all of a sudden you realize that actually these things don't make me happy. Well, what does make you happy? That's the question I want you to ask. I want you to look at these rules and see which ones are not working for you. Which ones that you've been given by someone else. Our family's a big one for this, right? A lot of us are given our rules by our families. Because depending on where you came from, I come from an immigrant Italian family, that certain things were that were supposed to happen. Now, thankfully, I have a really supportive family and everything that I've done, but a lot of us don't always have that. So we're forced with these rules. You got to be married by this certain age, right? You gotta have this kind of job. Well, that doesn't really help, right? Because what ends up happening is that we're trying to go towards being happy. And now, what society tells us is that if we do these things, we'll be happy. Well, again, I followed it, it didn't work. Maybe you're following it and it didn't work. So this is your time to change that. Now here's the other way that rules come up. They also come up from our past experiences, right? Things would have happened, and if we broke these supposed rules and we had a bad outcome, our brain's gonna remember that. Remember, our brains are negatively focused from an environmental, evolutionary standpoint. They had to be, right? Remember, if we look back quickly, if we were back to our caveman ancestors or cave women ancestors, if they came out of the cave, they didn't realize that the stream they're getting their water from was drying up. that the tree that they were getting their food from is dying, or that thing moving on the horizon was a saber-toothed tiger, they would end up either dead from starvation, dead from dehydration, or dead because they became prey. So our brains are constantly scanning for negative circumstances in our lives, particularly in our past. So the way our brain remembers things even more, we know this through studying the hippocampus, is that if there's emotion tied to something, we will remember it more intensely, we remember it longer. It'll be long-term memory. So what we have to think about is that if we had this rule, right? So for example, one of the ones that I dealt with one of my clients and people on my team was that the woman can't say I love you first. The woman can't ask the person to marry them first. Now, I've had clients who've engaged in this, and then they unfortunately, things didn't work out the way they wanted to. So then now they're less likely to do this going forward. But that's a rule. Why should you as a woman have to wait for someone else to tell you that you love them? Why should a woman have to wait to get married if they want to get married to this person? I encourage my client around this to say, hey, listen, if you want to tell this person that you love them and you do, and they don't reciprocate it, that's okay. At least you know now. If you ask this person to marry and they say no, that person probably doesn't deserve you. So again, these are rules that we fabricated. So what I want you to do is just look at, where are the rules in your life? What are some of the rules that either society has given you, remember social constructs, maybe your family has given you, or maybe you made up on your own because of your past negative experiences? What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take out a piece of paper, blank preferably, and write down all your rules on that. And I want you to leave a space in between them. Because what we're gonna do after that is we're gonna engage in another exercise. Because here's the deal. Your brain is for you ultimately, but it's for you to keep you safe. That's why it subscribes to a lot of these rules. Your brain is not wired for growth, right? Growth can be scary, right? Remember, your brain's number one operative is to keep you alive. And to keep you alive, it's gotta keep you safe, and to keep you safe, it's gotta keep you comfortable. Now, just by growing, you're out of your comfort zone, right? So when you're out of your comfort zone, your brain thinks it's unsafe, which means it thinks you're gonna die. So it's doing everything it can to work against you in that way. But when you identify these rules and now make them conscious and not subconscious anymore, and you write them down so they're in front of you, you all of a sudden know that this is happening. They're not subconscious. You're not being run by the man behind the curtain anymore. Shout out to the Wizard of Oz. So now, as you've written these rules down, I want you to cross them out. And underneath that, I want you to answer one of two questions. I want you to ask, what do I want out of my life? So for example, if one of your rules is, I can't tell someone I love them first. You cross that rule out, what do I want out of my life? I want to be loved. I want to know my love is reciprocated. Awesome. Another rule, I need to make this much money to be happy. Cross that out. The other question you can ask is, what do I want my life to look like? Well, maybe you want your life to look like you're content and fulfilled. Figure out what number that you need to have that is. Have a number in mind. There are tons of research out there that shows that happiness is not tied to money. Once you get to a certain threshold of money, and it typically say around $70,000, your happiness does not go up exponentially from there. It actually can go down, because what ends up happening is you're working more, you're not with your family or your friends more often because you're having to work more to make that more money. Think about it. What are the other things you need in your life? And ask these two questions as you cross out your rules. What do I want out of my life? And what do I want my life to look like? And rewrite your rules. Turn these rules, bullshit rules, into standards instead. Standards. Instead of having to get married, I'll be in a committed relationship with someone I love. Doesn't mean you have to get married. Standard. I don't need to have kids. Instead, I want to have tight friendships, or I want to be there for my other friends' kids. This is something that I do. You'll be the amazing uncle or aunt that you want to be. But think about this. What are the rules that have been pushed upon you by society, by your family, or by your past experiences that are bullshit rules that are running your life and continuing to have you be unfulfilled, not happy, and ultimately anxiety-ridden because you're engaging in comparison? Rewrite these right now. turn them into standards, put these standards somewhere that you can see every single day, and start living into these standards, because these are the things that are going to make your life be the way that you want it to be. These things are going to fundamentally change your life. These things are going to snap your mindset around in order to start focusing on the things that you want in life, not the things that other people tell you that you should have. So team, think about this. What are the rules in your life? What are the bullshit rules that you've been living by? Rewrite those rules into standards by asking the two questions of what do I want out of my life, or what do I want my life to look like? Rewrite those rules, turn them into your standards, and strive for 1% toward those standards every single day, and watch how your life can transform from one of being unfulfilled, unhappy, and anxiety-ridden to being fulfilled, to being happy, and to looking forward to everything that the new day has to offer.